So in one of the most exciting off seasons, in my opinion, in the last 5 years, still has four of some of the top players in the MLB on the free agent market. Well, we gotta talk about that.
Hold up, wait until the whole team show up, yeah. I'm in Neverland, can't grow up, yeah.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Whoa! I just tried to make that kind of cool, but I got a new setup. I got a new setup for my YouTube videos. Before, I was just using a random couch in my house, but I decided to put all this stuff together of some of my favorite sort of sports memorabilia stuff and make it part of my background for my videos. So I hope you guys do really like this new setup. So let's get on with the video. So today I am going to be talking about some of the free agents that are still on the market and predicting where these players are going to go. So before I forget, don't forget, go down and subscribe. I post new videos every single week talking about the biggest sports stories and giving a little bit of my analysis. And I also do the same exact thing on my Twitter and also my Instagram. So I greatly appreciate it if you would follow either of those and also to subscribe. So today I'm going to be talking about some of the free agents that are still available, like Josh Donaldson, Marcel Ozuna, Nick Castellanos, and also Yasiel Puig, and then just also talking about some interesting low value pickups that I think a lot of teams would be able to get some high upside from these different players. And so just to start off, let's talk about Josh Donaldson. Now, his market has really been heating up. And we got teams like the Nationals, like the Twins, and also his former team in the Braves really heating up his market. And they all are willing to go around 4 years and 90 to $100 million for his deal. And if you don't remember, last year he signed a 1 year, $25 million deal with the Atlanta Braves. And so going back to about 3 or 4 years ago, Josh Donaldson was one of the best third basemen in the league, an MVP candidate and also an MVP winner. And he dipped a little bit just from injuries, but he came back on a tear last season, hitting 37 home runs and having a mediocre 250 batting average, but he still put a lot of power in that Atlanta Braves lineup. And so teams like the Nationals and also the Twins are looking at Donaldson as a great pickup for somebody that would be a veteran presence, not only in their lineup and their clubhouse, but somebody that would bring a lot of excitement to the franchise itself. And especially with the Nationals, like a team who just lost their franchise player in Anthony Rendon, but you could also say that Strasburg is their franchise player. But Rendon meant so much to that Nationals team, and especially for them going forward and just having that huge hole at third base. I think Josh Donaldson would be able to fit in Washington really well. But it is also interesting to look at the different teams that are very hard on Donaldson and are really working hard to be able to sign him. And in my opinion, I kind of thought that he was going to be picked up a lot earlier in this offseason, but it seems like he's just taking this time to be able to figure out the best place for him to want to spend these next 3 to 4 years of his career. And we've already seen that a team like the Minnesota Twins have offered him a deal. And looking at the Twins' depth chart, it will be interesting to see where he will fit into that team, especially since they already have Miguel Sano at third base. And in my opinion, with Sano's size, they could put him at first base and move Marwin Gonzalez to second base, and then also put Polanco either at second base or keep him at shortstop. But I just think it'll be really interesting to see how the depth chart all changes, especially if either of these teams do get Josh Donaldson on their team. But either way, they're going to be getting a very big bat in the middle of that lineup and a very reliable third baseman. And especially with how thin the third baseman lineup or the third baseman market is at the moment, with high prices for Nolan Arenado and Chris Bryant on the cusp, it'll be interesting to see what these different teams who don't get Donaldson will do to pick up a very quality third baseman. And so my opinion, I believe that the Nationals will be the team to pick up Donaldson. I think they're going to sign him to a 4 year, $95 to $100 million deal, just because, in my opinion, it seems like the Nationals are pushing really hard to get a very consistent third baseman, especially with the loss of Rendon at the start of this offseason. So now getting into Marcel Ozuna. Now, his market has been very interesting and pretty slow, in my opinion, for such a high quality and very exciting player that he was, especially when he was on the Marlins. Now, looking back to 2017, he hit 37 home runs with the Marlins and hit around 300 to 320. And his numbers have really started to drop through the last 2 years with the Cardinals. And we saw it especially last year when he hit 241 with 29 home runs. Now, obviously, 29 home runs is still good. But in 2018, he hit only 23 home runs. Even though that's still good, most of the time with those sort of players, you're not going to pay them more than 15 to 17 million dollars. So it's not like we're going to see Ozuna get one of these 20 to 25 million dollar deals like we've been seeing a lot of these high quality outfielders getting. And so MLB Trade Rumors has predicted that he's going to get a 3-year, $45 million deal, and it'll be really interesting to see what sort of teams will be picking him up. Now, there's still a lot of teams that are in the market for some high quality outfielders or that just need somebody that is able to excite their franchise, and that is a team like the Texas Rangers. Now, they're looking at Ozuna as a player that is able to come in, not only make an impact in the outfield and in the lineup, but be able to bring that new excitement to that new ballpark that they have in Texas. And it will also be interesting to see if teams like the Chicago White Sox, who are still looking for an outfielder, but in my opinion, I really don't think that the White Sox will sign any of these free agents since they did just sign a big extension to their top prospect in Luis Robert. And I really think that he is the future of the outfield. And then they also have Eloy Jimenez. And then they also have Nomar Mazara. So that outfield is pretty packed up. But that team would be scary with Ozuna. And in my opinion, I think that Ozuna is going to sign with the St. Louis Cardinals just because we saw how comfortable he was last year in that ballpark and over the last 2 years, and he seems to have really built a great relationship with the clubhouse of the St. Louis Cardinals. I think being able to keep him in a comfortable sort of atmosphere, I think will really be able to help him propel to continue to develop into that 30 home run player that he was 2 years ago. And I still think he's going to be able to get there because he still is very young. He still is around 27 to 29. And I think he still has a lot of upside for any team that picks him up. So now getting into another big outfield free agent in Nicholas Castellanos. And he was one of the top prospects for the Detroit Tigers coming up around 6 years ago. And we saw him really develop into a great hitter, especially in the last few seasons. He's really propelled into a very good and versatile power hitting outfielder. And he came up at third base, but his defensive limitations have really started to put his value pretty low, as we've seen in this offseason. Now, he is projected to only make around $14.5 million per year and to get around a 4-year $58 million deal. And there are a lot of teams that are interested in him, like pretty much the same similar teams like Ozuna, who are very interested in these high quality outfielders of teams like the White Sox and also the Texas Rangers. And in my opinion, I think that he is going to sign with the Texas Rangers, especially because, like I said with Ozuna, the Rangers are looking for one of those exciting young outfielders or players that are really going to bring an audience and bring those fans to want to rush to the stadium to see this team, especially since the Rangers haven't really been that great in the last 3 or 4 years. And so it'll be interesting to see really where Castellanos goes because there's been a lot of teams that have been in conversation or have been rumored to want to sign him, teams like the San Francisco Giants as well. When they traded him during the offseason, I'm sorry, so we were able to see it when he was with the Cubs when they traded for him during the trade deadline when he hit 321 with 16 home runs. And that's when we really started to take a step back and be like, all right, this kid's legit. He's only 27. He's got a lot of upside and he's still in the middle of his prime. And it'll really be interesting to, especially with the new ballpark in Texas. It's got a short fence in left field, and he's really able to pull that ball well. So I really think he's going to be very successful as a Texas Ranger. And like I said, it'll be interesting to see what sort of teams really start to push to sign him during the end of this offseason. So now let's talk about the young and exciting Yasiel Puig. Now this isn't the same exact top prospect, next level sort of Mike Trout-esque sort of player that we saw during 2014 Yasiel Puig, but he still is very, very dependent in the outfield and with his bat. Now, he was able to hit 24 home runs and hit 267 with both the Reds and the Indians, but we saw it on the Reds and mostly with his time early in his career with the Dodgers that he's a big distraction in the clubhouse. And he's still pretty immature, especially when he decides to just out of nowhere argue with the umps over just random stuff, or just roll around the outfield and not really care about the play that's going on. But when he really does care, he's just able to pick up that ball and hum it over to third base and then just snag that guy right out. Like, he has some incredible talent, but we just got to see him care. We got to see him care about the team that he's playing for, the game that he's playing. He's just really got to change his mindset, in my opinion. And that's one of the biggest reasons why his value has been so low this offseason, and teams haven't really been jumping to want to sign him. And that's why we've seen his market really be sort of up in the air. Like teams like the Marlins, teams like the White Sox, who, like I've said throughout this video, are really looking for some outfielders. And also teams like the Giants as well, who they were looking at Castellanos as a potential signing because they really need some outfield help and also, in my opinion, a lot of help just around the team in general. So it'll be really interesting to see where Puig does sign, and especially with how consistent he has been throughout the last 3 to 4 years with hitting around 20 to 25 home runs each season and hitting around 2 to 280 each season. That's a pretty mediocre outfielder that is probably going to make around 15 to 17 million dollars. But I really think in his best interest it will be to sign a 1-year deal to really bring his value back up and be able to bring up that excitement in his name. And I think a perfect team would be like the San Francisco Giants. And in my opinion, if Puig really does go off and is able to hit, 290, 300, be able to hit 30 home runs, like in my opinion, he has the potential to do, we could see him making around 20 to 25 million dollars if he really does get that sort of surge this next season. And so it'll be really interesting to see where he does land. So just a few free agents that are still in the market that haven't really been talked about at all and are still very young and still have a lot of upside, in my opinion, are guys like Taijuan Walker and Danny Salazar. Now, both of these guys have been really good pitchers throughout their young careers. And with Taijuan Walker, he's 27. With Danny Salazar, he's 29. Now, we've seen Salazar really be able to perform well when he was with the Cleveland Indians. And then he came back from an injury and, did mediocre. He came back. He took his steps to come back, but he wasn't the same pitcher that he was before. But with a lot of these, rebuilding teams, or even like a team, wink, wink, the Red Sox, that really need these sort of low value players that they can sign to these rebound deals so these players are able to build their value back up for the next offseason. Guys like these who would really be able to have a lot of low risk and high reward, especially for a guy like Taijuan Walker as well. He was looked at as one of the best top prospects in the MLB during 2011 through 2013 when he was with the Mariners, and then he got traded over the Diamondbacks, and he did all right with the Diamondbacks. He had about a 4 ERA. But what do you expect from a guy with 1 to 2 years under his belt in the MLB? Most of the time, we see those guys that are young and especially have a lot of pressure on them, really not start to do too well when they start off in the MLB. And so, especially with a new atmosphere and new excitement around his name, I think both of these guys will be able to make huge impacts to any team that is actually smart enough to sign these guys. And with any team that does pick up these very low risk players, I think they're going to get a lot of really high reward. And so I hope you guys really liked this video. If you did, please give me a big thumbs up. Also, put in the comment section below, where do you think these guys are going to go? It'll be really interesting. It's been a really exciting offseason so far, and I'm really excited to see where this offseason takes us, and especially how the season goes, because there's a lot of contending teams and a lot of question marks, and it'll be really interesting to see how they all get answered. And I'm all going to be talking about it right here. So before I forget, don't forget, go down and subscribe. I post videos every single week, and I'll greatly appreciate it if you guys want to join the team. So I also post every single day on my Instagram and also my Twitter, so go over and follow both of those. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys next time. See ya.
The band, that's big views. Boarded the plane, won't be back to Maine.